I never thought I'd be writing something like this, especially not here, but I need to get it off my chest. Maybe I'm just venting, maybe I want someone to tell me I'm not crazy for feeling like this. Either way, here goes. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 3 years now. We got engaged last year, and everything seemed perfect, or so I thought. She's the kind of girl who always acted like she was in control, a little bitchy, yeah, but confident. She's gorgeous, successful, and she knew it. She liked to tease me, play little mind games, but I always let it slide because I loved her. Or at least I thought I did. Our engagement dinner was supposed to be a celebration, but from the start, I had this gut feeling something was off. Lisa was acting normal, flirty, sarcastic, her usual self. She was wearing this stunning black dress, and she kept looking at me with those eyes that you think mean love, but looking back, they might have been something else entirely. Her friends were there, the usual chatter, but I caught her sneaking glances at her phone more than once. I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was texting her friends or making some fake excuse about a work thing. But then the night carried on and I noticed small things. She kept her phone closed even when she was dancing. I remember catching a glimpse of her screen, some message thread that looked suspiciously intimate. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but my gut was tightening. And the worst part, everyone else seemed totally oblivious. She was acting perfectly normal, laughing, clinking glasses, even giving me a little playful shove here and there. Honestly, I was starting to feel like I was the only one who saw through it. The night ended and I was drunk, emotionally and physically, when I finally decided to check her phone. I know, bad move, but I couldn't help it. My hands were trembling as I unlocked her screen, and what I saw froze me in place. There were messages, flirty, explicit messages, between her and my best friend Ryan. It wasn't just a one-time thing either. It was ongoing, sickening even, and the worst part. It looked like they'd been planning it, talking about sneaking around during the engagement dinner, like it was some kind of game. I sat there in shock, staring at her words. She was calling him baby, saying she wanted to see him, that she missed his cock, that she loved the thrill of sneaking around behind my back. I couldn't believe it. Ryan, my best friend, the guy I trusted with everything. And Lisa, the girl I thought I knew. All of it just a lie. All of it betrayed in the worst possible way on what was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. I shut her phone off and just sat there, feeling like the world was crashing down around me. I couldn't sleep after that. My mind kept racing, replaying everything, the way she acted, her stupid little smiles, the false sincerity in her eyes. She had been lying to my face all night, and I'd been blind to it. It was like I was stupid for ever trusting any of them. The worst part, I knew I had to confront her. But how do you even do that? How do you face the woman you loved, knowing she's been screwing your best friend behind your back? I've never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. In my entire life, I kept asking myself, was I blind? Did I miss something? Or was I just too in love to see the truth? Whatever it was, I knew I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know. The truth was out now, and I had to face it head on. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I kept staring at my phone, debating whether I should call her or just confront her in person. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to tear her apart for what she did. The other part, the logical side, knew I had to stay calm, at least until I had all the facts. I decided to wait until she got home from work. I needed some time to think, to process what I'd seen. But that didn't mean I was going to sit around doing nothing. I started digging. I needed to know just how far this was going. I checked her social media, emails, anything that might give me more clues. And what I found was worse than I expected. She had been secretly meeting Ryan, not just texting but actually seeing him behind my back. There were photos, some from her Instagram stories, some from her Snapchat. She posted a picture of them at a bar, smiling like everything was fine, like she wasn't a lying piece of trash. And I saw the comments she made to him, all flirtatious, full of "can't wait to see you again" and "missed you today." It was all laid out in plain sight, and I felt sick. Finally, she walked through the door around 6 p.m. I was already sitting on the couch, her phone in my hand, waiting like a ticking time bomb. She looked surprised but not guilty, more like she expected me to be angry, which I was. I didn't say anything at first, just stared at her hard. She tried to act like she didn't know what I was talking about. She put her bag down and gave me that same bitchy smirk she always had. "What's your problem, Jake? You're overreacting. It's not a big deal." That's what she said, like she was trying to brush it off, make it seem trivial. But her voice was shaky and her eyes darted away. That's when I snapped. "You've been screwing Ryan, haven't you?" I asked, voice low but full of rage. She blinked, pretending to be innocent. "What? No, that's bullshit," she shot back. "You're imagining things. I don't know what you're talking about." But her hands were trembling and I could see the guilt in her eyes. I kept pressing. "Don't lie to me, Lisa. I saw the messages, the pictures, all of it." She finally broke down, her voice cracking. "Okay, fine, yeah, I did it. I was stupid. I was drunk and Ryan was there and it just happened. It didn't mean anything." She told me she was bored, that I was never around and that she needed excitement, that she'd never loved me the way I thought she did. Her excuses were pathetic, but I knew deep down she didn't care about my feelings. She was just trying to justify her betrayal. That moment was a punch to the gut. I felt like I was losing my mind. How could she be so callous, so indifferent? I was furious, but more than anything I was hurt. The person I trusted most in this world, the girl I was going to marry, had been lying to me for months. All those nights I thought she was working late or spending time with her friends, they were with Ryan. I felt like an idiot, a fool for not seeing it sooner. She kept begging for forgiveness, crying crocodile tears, saying she loved me but just needed a break, that she was so lost. It was all bullshit. She knew exactly what she was doing and she didn't care. I remember feeling this wave of rage and sadness wash over me like I was drowning. I wanted to scream, to hit something, but I just sat there, stunned, feeling the weight of betrayal settle over me. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, how I could have been so stupid. I'd always thought I was the one who was loyal, the one who'd never cheat. And there she was, lying through her teeth, acting innocent. The worst part, I knew this wasn't going to be over easily. It felt like my entire life was shifting under my feet, and I had no idea what was coming next. After that confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't look at Lisa the same way anymore. She kept crying, begging me to forgive her, saying she was sorry, that she loved me and didn't mean to hurt me. But her words felt hollow. I saw her for what she really was, someone who would lie, cheat, and manipulate without a second thought. I didn't want to be with someone like that, not anymore. The anger inside me started to simmer, but beneath it was this gnawing ache of betrayal. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, knocked out, then dragged through a mudslide of emotions. I told her I needed space, that I couldn't do this right now. She begged me not to leave, but I knew I had to. I had to get away from her lies, from the whole sickening mess. I went to stay at a friend's place for a few days just to clear my head. I kept replaying everything. How she acted during the engagement dinner, how she flirted with Ryan, how she lied to me all along. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I felt like I'd trusted her with every part of myself, and she'd just thrown it all away for some stupid thrill. During those days apart, I started to realize what I really wanted. I knew I couldn't stay with her, at least not now. The pain was too fresh, too raw. I was angry at her, furious that she could do this to me, but I was also hurt. Deep down, I was devastated because I genuinely loved her, or at least I thought I did. Now I wasn't so sure what love even meant anymore. Meanwhile, Lisa kept texting me, trying to explain, to apologize, to say she was worth saving or some bullshit like that. But I wasn't buying it. I saw her for what she was: selfish, manipulative, a liar. I told her I needed time to think, that I needed her to leave me alone for a while. I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. A part of me wanted revenge. Not just to hurt her, but to make her understand what she'd done, how much she'd destroyed. I was so angry I wanted her to feel the pain she'd caused me, see what it felt like to be betrayed so thoroughly. But I also knew that revenge wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't bring back the girl I thought I knew. Still, the thought of turning her world upside down kept creeping into my mind. One night, I found myself going through her phone again. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to see if she'd slipped up or said something more that could crush her. And sure enough, I found new messages. Not just flirtatious ones with Ryan, but outright explicit conversations about what they did. How she loved the way Ryan's cock felt inside her, how she wanted to see him again as soon as possible. It was like a punch in the chest. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness but from this deep, boiling anger. It dawned on me then that she'd been cheating on me for months. This wasn't just some fling, this was a full-blown affair. She'd been lying, sneaking around, betraying me at every turn. And Ryan, my best friend, the one guy I trusted above all else, he'd been complicit, just as much the villain in this story as she was. That night I decided I'd had enough. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I knew I had to confront both of them, Lisa and Ryan. I wanted to hear their excuses, their lies, their bullshit. But more than anything, I wanted to make them understand what they'd done to me. I was hurt, furious, and tired of feeling like I was the only one who cared about what was right. The next morning, I started planning my move. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. No way. They'd hurt me deeply, and I deserved an explanation, maybe even some justice. All I knew was that this betrayal was not going to define me. I was done being the naive guy who trusted everyone blindly. From now on, I'd be the one in control. I spent the next few days trying to figure out my next move. I knew I had to confront Ryan as well as Lisa, but I also knew I couldn't do it without a plan. I wanted to hit them where it hurt, make them feel the pain they'd caused me, but I also didn't want to do something reckless. Still, I couldn't ignore the fact that they'd stolen months of my life, my trust, my happiness. I needed to make a statement. I decided I'd invite Ryan over, but not for a casual hangout. I wanted him to see that I knew everything. I set it up deliberately, pretending to be calm, collected, even friendly. I wanted him to know I was onto him, that I was no longer the fool he thought I was. The doorbell rings and I open it, and there he is, smirking, confident, as if he didn't have a care in the world. We sat down in my living room and I looked him straight in the eyes. "Ryan," I said quietly, "I know what you've been doing with Lisa. All those messages, the photos, the plans, I've seen it all." His face flickered for a moment, surprise, maybe embarrassment, but then he quickly recovered. He tried to play it cool, telling me it was nothing, just some stupid flirtation, that it didn't mean anything. That's when I lost it. I told him I'd trusted him like a brother, and he had screwed me over worse than anyone ever could. I told him I didn't want to hear his excuses, because whatever he said, I knew he'd betrayed me and I'd never forgive him. Then I pulled out my phone, showed him the evidence I'd collected. The messages where Lisa called him baby, where she talked about wanting to see him again. He looked visibly shaken, but he kept trying to deny it, saying it was just sex, that they got carried away. I didn't buy it. "Sex, that's what you call it," I spat. "You're supposed to be my best friend, my brother. And you're out here screwing my wife behind my back. How could you do that to me?" His excuses sounded hollow, like he was trying to justify the unthinkable. I saw the guilt in his eyes, but mostly I saw the cowardice. He knew he'd crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. After I finished with him, I told him to leave and not come back, that I didn't want to see him again, at least not until I was ready. I knew I'd burned that bridge for good. The betrayal was too deep. I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief that I was finally confronting the truth, and rage that I'd been played for a fool. That evening I called Lisa. I told her to come over so we could talk, really talk. When she arrived, I was cold, distant, but also furious. I wanted her to see that I was done pretending everything was okay. I laid everything out, the messages, the photos, my feelings. I told her I knew she'd been lying, cheating, and that I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore. Her reaction was classic. She broke down crying, begging me to forgive her, claiming she was confused, that it was just a stupid mistake, that she loved me and that she'd never do it again. But I wasn't buying it. Her tears didn't feel genuine. They seemed like just another act. I looked at her and realized that I'd been in love with an illusion, a girl who cared more about her own selfish needs than the man who had loved her. I told her that I needed time to think, that I was hurting too much to make any decisions right now. I told her I was done with the lies, done with the betrayal. I asked her to leave, and when she hesitated, I made it clear this was over. No more pretending. No more excuses, I was done. That night I stayed awake trying to process everything. The pain was sharp like 1,000 needles stabbing my chest. I kept asking myself how I had let this happen, how I'd been so blind. I'd trusted her, loved her, and she'd thrown it all away. But deep down, I knew I had to move on. I couldn't keep living in this nightmare. I had to find a way to pick up the pieces and rebuild. And that's where I am now, sitting here, writing this out. It's not easy and I don't even know what comes next. But I do know one thing, I'm done being the fool. No more lies, no more betrayal. I'll find my strength again, even if it's just one step at a time. The days that followed were some of the hardest in my life. I felt like I'd been gutted, left bleeding out emotionally, and trying to breathe while everything around me was crumbling. I kept replaying that night in my mind over and over, wondering if I could have done something differently. Maybe if I had paid more attention, maybe if I hadn't trusted her so blindly, I wouldn't be in this mess. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about blame. It was about the pain of realization. I started to distance myself from friends and family, not because I wanted to hide, but because I just couldn't face anyone. I felt embarrassed, humiliated. How could I have been so stupid? I kept asking myself that question every hour. My mind kept circling back to the images, the messages, the photos, the sneaking around during what was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated in my entire existence. But even in the midst of this chaos, a strange clarity was beginning to form. I realized I had two choices: let this break me or use it as a wake-up call. I chose the latter. I decided I'd stop feeling sorry for myself and instead focus on healing, on rebuilding something better, something stronger. I knew I couldn't erase what had happened, but I could learn from it. I could become someone who trusted again, but more wisely. One day, I finally made the decision to block Lisa's number and her social media profiles. I couldn't stand the thought of her reaching out anymore, trying to manipulate her way back into my life. I needed to cut her off completely. It hurt to do this, but I knew it was necessary. Staying connected to her would only keep the pain fresh, keep me stuck in that downward spiral. The hardest part was accepting that my best friend had betrayed me so deeply. Ryan was supposed to be like family. We'd been through so much together, sports, parties, late-night talks about life, and now I saw that it was all a lie. The trust I'd placed in him was shattered, and honestly, I felt a bitter kind of anger toward him almost every day. How could he do this? How could he betray someone who trusted him so completely? I reached out to some friends just to vent and get some support. Surprisingly, most of them told me I was better off without Lisa and Ryan in my life. That I deserved someone who actually cared about me, who wouldn't cheat and lie. That helped a little, but underneath, I still carried that deep wound of heartbreak. Every time I saw a couple happy and in love, I'd be reminded of what I lost. I also started focusing on myself. I hit the gym more often, trying to rebuild my confidence physically and emotionally. I started reading more, trying to understand how someone I loved could turn out to be so cold and manipulative. I realized I'd been too trusting, too naive. But that's okay. I knew I'd learn from it. I'd grow stronger, smarter, more guarded. Despite all this, I found myself haunted by thoughts of what could have been, what should have been. I kept wondering if I could have fought harder, if I could have saved it somehow. But I also knew that some betrayals run too deep. No matter how much love or effort you put into fixing things, if the foundation is broken, it's impossible to rebuild it the same way. Looking back now, I understand that this experience has changed me. I'm not the same naive guy I was before. I'm more cautious, more aware of red flags, but I still believe in love, just a lot more carefully. I've learned that trust is fragile and that betrayal cuts deeper than you can imagine. But I've also learned that I am capable of surviving this kind of heartbreak, maybe even stronger for it. So yeah, I'm still healing, still figuring out what's next, but I refuse to let this define me. One day I'll find someone who genuinely loves me, someone who won't lie, cheat, or betray. And I'll never forget what I went through, but I refuse to let it control me. I'm done being the victim. It's time to take back my life and rebuild from the ashes. Now that I've gone through everything, I realize how much this whole ordeal has changed me. At first, I was just angry, hurt, and confused, feeling like the world had turned upside down. I kept asking myself how I let this happen, how I could have been so blind. But eventually, I started to see the bigger picture. Trust is something you build slowly, but it can be shattered in an instant by people you thought were your closest allies. Looking back, I see that the biggest lesson is about valuing myself enough to walk away from toxic people, people who betray you, lie to your face, and cheat behind your back. I used to think that love was about giving everything, about trusting blindly. But now I know it's also about boundaries, respect, and knowing when to walk away. If someone can do this kind of damage, they don't deserve a second chance. I won't lie, it's been incredibly difficult to get to this point. There were nights I wondered if I'd ever love again, if I'd ever trust anyone as deeply as I once trusted Lisa. But over time, I've come to accept that heartbreak is just part of life, an ugly, painful part, but part of growth too. The pain slowly fades, replaced by a cautious hope that someday I'll find someone who genuinely cares, who values honesty and loyalty. I also learned to forgive myself for trusting too easily, for loving too much, for not seeing the red flags sooner. That's a part of being human. What matters is that I'm still standing, still fighting for a better future. I've cut out the toxic people in my life and started focusing on my own happiness again. I've realized that I don't need someone to complete me. I just need to be whole first. And so, I move forward. I don't hold grudges anymore, not really. I just carry the lessons with me. I keep my guard up, but I also keep my heart open carefully this time. I'm not rushing into anything new, but I know eventually I'll find love again. Maybe not the same kind I thought I had, but something real, something genuine. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust me, you're not alone. It hurts like hell, but time heals. Your pain will lessen, and you'll find your way out of the darkness. The key is to keep moving forward, even if it's one small step at a time. Don't let betrayal define you. Instead, let it teach you how to be stronger, wiser, and more resilient. In the end, this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about survival, growth, and the hope that life can get better even after the worst heartbreak. And I believe that with all my heart.